We're digging deeper than ever before into our brand new Ask an Expert episode, Dinosaurs and Megafauna. We'll leave no stone unturned as we get to the bottom of your questions with our expert from the Australian Museum in the AusGeo studio. It's time to talk dinosaurs and megafauna as voted by you in our all-new episode of Ask an Expert. Hello and welcome to another episode of Australian Geographic's Ask an Expert. Today I am here with Dr Matthew McCurry from the Australian Museum. He is the curator of paleontology, so the perfect person to have on with us today.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into paleontology and what your favourite dinosaur is?
Yeah, so I guess I've always been interested in the natural world. Like I was always the type of kid that loved being out in nature and like seeing animals. And then I guess naturally that progressed into loving fossils and trying to learn about the natural world. I think paleontology is particularly exciting because there's a lot of things we don't understand. And so there's a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
And I think my favourite dinosaur is Australovenator.
Okay.
It's a theropod dinosaur from Queensland. It's like a large raptor, so they're a part of a group called the Megaraptors.
That's awesome. Okay, so we have so many questions from our audience. Everyone's very excited about dinosaurs. If you're not already following us, our social tags are on the screen. And if you have any questions during the live stream, be sure to send us a message, especially in the live stream chat, and we will do our best to answer them. But I guess we should dig in, excuse my pun, and talk all things dinosaurs. So our first question comes from Kale Del Allen, and he would like to know what makes a dinosaur a dinosaur. So how are they different from other mammals, avians and reptiles of the time?
Yeah, so I guess dinosaurs are just one branch of the tree of life. So if you think about it, they've like evolved like a lot of unique traits really early in their history. So one of those things is they start walking upright. Mm-hmm. That's maybe one of the things that led to dinosaurs becoming so like diverse and like filling all the niches that they do. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the things that make dinosaurs a dinosaur are like adaptations of the limbs. So the shape of the bones, the features of the bones. Yeah.
Amazing. And so were there other kind of avians, reptiles, mammals around at the time that were living alongside the dinosaurs? Yeah,
so before the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct, there were lots of mammals, there were lots of birds around. They're just two groups that I guess took off after the dinosaurs went extinct and became more abundant, more diverse.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So our next question from Instagram is from Craft Cat, and they would like to know how many different types of dinosaurs have been found in Australia?
So there is around 22 species of dinosaur that have been described from Australia, and that's pretty low compared to the rest of the world. I think it's low because dinosaurs are hard to find here and we don't have a lot of paleontologists working in Australia. I guess it's also a hard question to answer because every year scientists debate exactly how many dinosaur species there are.
Okay.
So sometimes we split species into kind of two different species. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we debate and actually figure out that like two individuals are actually one species. Mm-hmm. And so that number kind of is in flux every year.
Amazing. So does that mean that we have some dinosaurs that kind of like Pluto, like they just no longer get the definition, they just get rejected?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's also a situation where like if the fossils aren't good enough to like, be able to refer to them and prove that something's the same, then people can like, say, oh, that fossil's not good enough, that species doesn't count anymore.
Wow. So then you're wanting to search for some more of that one that I see.
Yeah.
And do we have some kind of fossil hotspots that we're kind of looking at the moment to maybe increase those numbers?
Yeah, I guess there's hotspots all over the country. Mm-hmm. Fossils are found just about everywhere. But in terms of dinosaur species, I guess there's a lot being found in Queensland at the moment. It's a bit of a hotspot.
That's so exciting. Our next question is also from Instagram, and it's how many ancient kangaroo species have been identified and whereabouts were they located?
Definitely more than the dinosaurs. So there's probably around 100 species of fossil kangaroos. And it's not that kangaroos were heaps more diverse or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're more recent fossils. We have better deposits from those ages. And so it's easier to find fossils from kangaroos.
Amazing. And whereabouts, is there anywhere that has a lot more than other places, or are they quite?
They're spread out across the country. So lots of cave systems preserve fossil megafauna really well. And so I guess caves are one of the places that are hotspots, but also riverine deposits as well. So
Amazing.
all over the place.
Yeah, that's very cool. Wayne on Instagram would like to know, are there stone tool butchering marks on any megafauna in Australia?
There aren't, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, we don't have any evidence of cut marks on the bones of megafauna. We do have some evidence of megafauna bones being burnt. So there's a site called Cuddy Springs that I think has some megafauna bones that are burnt. But yeah, it's one of those things. The rest of the world, we do find cut marks in bones. Here in Australia, we haven't yet.
So can we assume that there probably are, or that they kind of were, for lack of a better term, butchered in a similar way, or?
It's one of those things. I think the technology is a bit different. So humans here in Australia were using different tools to butcher animals that they did catch. And so, yeah, maybe it's also reflective of the types of technology they were using to do the processing of carcasses.
Interesting, that makes sense. Mike Mullard on TikTok, and correct me if I mispronounce this, where was the almost complete diprotodon megafauna skeleton found with a joey pouch, proving that they were marsupial?
Yeah, that's a hard one. So I guess we've found diprotodon skeletons at several different sites with pouch young. So one of those sites is Lake Callabonna. But way earlier than that, we realised that they were marsupials. So they've got lots of characteristics in the teeth and in the jaws that, tell us that they're marsupial. So it's something that hasn't really been in question.
Yeah, interesting. So we kind of knew beforehand, and that was just a bit of like bonus evidence, I guess.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, the Painting Penny, they have a couple of questions. The first one is, what types of digestive systems do we think large herbivorous dinosaurs had, and like such as the foregut or hindgut fermentation? Can we figure this out?
That's a really good question. So obviously, we don't have digestive systems preserved in dinosaurs, so we can't really say for certain. And yeah, so those two different types of digestive systems, I guess animals evolve different types of digestive systems to process different types of plant material. So the foregut fermenters, they can process things quite efficiently, but they can't eat kind of the diversity of plants that the hindgut fermenters can. Hindgut fermenters have to eat a lot more plant material to get the same energy out of it, but it means that they can kind of eat a lot of kind of low quality plants throughout the day. In terms of dinosaurs, we actually don't know which one of those they fit into. I'd say most birds that eat plant material today are hindgut fermenters, and so probably hindgut, but yeah, it's hard for us to say for certain.
Interesting, and I guess there could have been a mix of both for different kind of diets and
environments. We know that different animals are evolving those two different strategies, kind of at different points in the tree of life, and so it's also possible that dinosaurs had a combination depending on the species that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They would also like to know, what are the current theories that could explain the high frequency of opisthotonic death pose seen in theropod and other bipedal fossils? And could you also explain what that death pose is for us who don't know?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of dinosaurs and also bird fossils that we find, they pose in like a certain position. So they're kind of bent backwards on themselves. And so yeah, that death pose is really common. Early on, there was a few different ideas about why dinosaurs were always found in that pose. And there was a really cool study that looked at the ligaments in the neck of these animals. And they found that if you cut those ligaments, the animals don't fall into that same pose. So it seems like it's something to do with these particularly strong ligaments in the neck, contracting through rigor mortis or through desiccation.
Amazing. So that's why we kind of see the same sort of pose in all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Tom Bates would like to know, were ammonites just the snails of the sea?
Well, they're part of the same group of animals, so they're all mollusks, but I guess they're more closely related to cephalopods.
Okay.
So things like squid and octopus, so they're probably doing more octopusy things in the ocean. They're probably swimming around, like grabbing fish and things like that, maybe making friends with scuba divers, yeah.
Cool. And for those who don't know, what does an ammonite kind of look like? How can we imagine it swimming around?
Yeah, so they were kind of floating, so they have like this ability to kind of change their buoyancy in the ocean. So they can float up and down, they have these like curled shells. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blake Falcon Green would like to know, how did chickens evolve from dinosaurs?
Yeah, so it's not just that they evolved from dinosaurs, so chickens are dinosaurs. So if we think about that like evolutionary tree, dinosaurs are one branch, and then birds are kind of found within that branch. And so, yeah, dinosaurs went, like all the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct at the end of the Cretaceous, but birds were just one very specialised group that survived.
Amazing. So does that mean that all birds are dinosaurs?
Yeah, all birds are dinosaurs.
That's pretty cool. So we still live among the dinosaurs. Yeah, I love that. Jane Hocking would like to know, what was Australia's biggest underwater predator?
Okay, so I guess the technicality there is we still have the biggest predator today. So blue whales are the largest predators that have ever lived.
Wow.
So they get up to around 30 metres long, and they're feeding on krill. So I guess they are still predating, just on really tiny things, lots of them at once. But if we look back through the fossil record, the biggest kind of fossil predator that we have would be Kronosaurus queenslandicus.
Amazing.
And so that's a large plesiosaur from Queensland. It's one of those marine reptiles with a short neck and a really big head, and it was a top predator in those ecosystems.
So what sort of things would it have been eating, do we think?
Probably other marine reptiles, but it probably fed on a wide range of different things. So like top predators today, they'll feed on big prey, but then if they can, they'll like also snap up little fish as well.
Yeah, little opportunistic snacks here and there. Yeah. So our question from YouTube, from Robert Digman, would like to know, are there any major gaps in Australia's fossil record? And if so, which period or periods are most involved?
Yeah, so there's lots of gaps. So I think that's one of the things that makes paleontology exciting. There's still a lot of things to find out. And for particular points in time, there's a lot to find out.
Yeah.
So the early Jurassic is potentially, or is definitely a big gap. We have very few fossils from the early Jurassic. The early Cenozoic is also a big gap as well.
Okay, interesting. Is there any way that we can kind of target trying to find things from these periods? Like, is there a certain level in the soil that we need to look for? Or
Yeah, so I think you've got to find the right age rocks and the right type of rocks. We can definitely target it, but it just requires a lot of effort.
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine. Tori H on Instagram would like us to talk about, so can you please tell us about the opalised plesiosaur found in Australian Museum?
Oh, okay, yeah. So there is an opalised plesiosaur at the Australian Museum. His name is Eric.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so Eric's an opalised skeleton of a species called Umunosaurus. And it was found in Cooper Pedy in an opal mine. It's very rare for us to find opalised fossils that are that complete. So normally we just find isolated pieces of one or two bones. But in this case, it was a whole skeleton.
It's amazing.
And so there was a bit of a story when Eric was first found as well. So it became owned by a company. And then there was a risk that Eric was going to be sold overseas or maybe even turned into jewellery because he's made of such a precious material.
Yeah.
But then there was a big fundraising drive. So a TV show called Quantum started raising money, and they got all these like kids to start doing bake sales to send in money to raise money to get Eric. And then Akubra Hats also donated money.
That's so cool.
And
so
so,
Australian.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, you know, everyone kind of banded together to try and make sure this important fossil stayed in the country.
Amazing, and it did, and we have it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where does the name Eric come from?
So Paul Willis was the paleontologist who did all the preparation of Eric, and he named Eric after one of the people who started Monty Python.
I love that. That's so just like off the wall. Fantastic. Pratt would like to know, are they trying to bring back mammoths in the same way that they're trying to bring back thylacines?
They are. So I guess if you think about fossils, most fossils we don't have any DNA from. They're just too old. DNA degrades quite quickly. But a couple of the species that are extinct that we can get DNA from are thylacines and mammoths.
Yep.
There are people working to try and use that DNA to recreate those animals. So splicing in sections of that DNA with closely related species.
Yep.
I think the challenging parts there is we don't have all the technology to do that. There's a lot of hurdles. We're still a long way off ever being able to recreate an animal. I think it's also ethically challenging because that animal's not going to be exactly, you know, what the animal's like. It's going to be like a modified modern day species. And also we've changed the environment. We've impacted those ecosystems that mammoths and thylacines used to live in. And so, yeah, they're probably going to exist kind of in captivity if we do.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily ideal for them.
No.
I guess it's kind of like Jurassic Park, you know, we can, but should we? Is it a good idea?
Yeah.
Duncan would like to know, what do cassowaries evolve from? Why are they so dinosaur-like? I feel like it's because they are dinosaurs, as we've learned.
Yeah, that's probably the starting point. So that they are dinosaurs, and a lot of the traits they have kind of are because their ancestors had those traits. But then Cassowaries also evolved from a group of birds called ratites, so the same group that includes like emus and moas. So they're large flightless birds, and I think the fact that they've become flightless and evolved large body size also means they've kind of evolved a few extra traits that look a bit more dinosaur-like as well.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And kind of a follow-on, I guess. Blaze of Glory would like to know, did dinosaurs have feathers?
Yeah, so we know that a particular group of dinosaurs did evolve feathers. So lots of the theropod dinosaurs had feathers. We already kind of thought that was the case, and we had some fossils indicating that was the case, but more recently, very good fossils have been found in China in ashfall deposits that show that, yeah, many of the theropod dinosaurs did have feathers.
That's amazing. And what did we think that the kind of skin of the other dinosaurs were like? Was it, scales like reptiles? Was it skin? Were they fluffy dinosaurs?
Yeah, very scaly. So I think if you look at the legs of birds, the parts of birds that aren't covered by feathers, that's probably a good indication of what dinosaurs look like as well.
Amazing, that's really interesting. Katia would like to know, how can you tell a dinosaur's sex from its bone structure? So can we identify the genders of the dinosaurs we discover?
Yeah, it's a hard one. So sometimes we can. So if a particular species of dinosaur is sexually dimorphic, so lots of the dinosaurs had crests, and certain members of the populations had crests, so sometimes the males had crests to use as display structures. And so if that's the case, we can tell between the sexes in the fossil record. If they're not sexually dimorphic, then it becomes harder.
Yeah.
The only time we can tell then is if there's a pregnant female that's fossilized, and they have a particular type of bone within their limbs that can indicate that they're female.
So if some of our dinosaurs have crests and such, does that mean that we can assume that these, big creatures were doing, the mating dances and rituals and stuff?
Yeah, look, I think it's hard to prove that for certain. If we have the fossil records, only bones, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard for us to say a lot about the behaviour of these species. But if we look at their close relatives, the birds, then yeah, they are undertaking lots of really complex mating behaviours, and dinosaurs could have done similar things.
That's so cool. You can imagine like the huge ones just like doing a little dance or something. Very cute. Lucy Robinson would like to know, did dinosaurs lay eggs or have live births?
Yeah, so we have a wide range of dinosaur eggs preserved in the fossil record. So all of the evidence suggests that they did give birth to eggs. I guess if there was a particular group of dinosaurs that evolved live birth, it would be hard to pick up on in the fossil record. So we'd have to have some really amazing fossils that are fossilized right at the right point in time as they're giving birth or as they've got a young within their bodies. So yeah, we haven't found anything like that. So I think all the evidence seems to suggest that they're giving birth to eggs.
Yeah, interesting. So that means they'd have nests and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Emmy Davies-Barnier would like to know, what dinosaur had the biggest teeth?
So T-Rex has the biggest teeth. So the teeth of T-Rex are around 30 centimetres long.
That's crazy.
Yeah, very gnarly.
Yeah. Do we have any big predators in Australia with big teeth like that?
I guess our largest predatory dinosaurs, we don't really have any fossils of the teeth. The largest that we would have would be something like Australovenator.
Very cool. Kel Delallen would also like to know, and he's got a bit of a long question, what was the relationship like between dinosaurs and mammals? Were mammals purely prey animals, or did they ever outcompete dinosaurs in certain niches? And are there any examples of symbiotic relationships between mammals and dinosaurs?
Okay, yeah, good question. So, at the time of the dinosaurs, there were mammals around. They're filling, I guess, a small component of that ecosystem. So they're mainly small. They do live in a wide variety of environments, so sometimes in rivers, sometimes climbing trees and things like that. So they're definitely out-competing in some very specific niches. But dinosaurs are still the most abundant and most diverse things at the time. And yeah, so I guess they're not really out-competing dinosaurs that much. In terms of symbiosis, so we don't have any examples of symbiotic relationships between mammals and dinosaurs. I think we have so little evidence from Cretaceous and Jurassic mammals that we have very few bones at all. And so we don't really have enough to pick up on those interactions between species.
Yeah, and I guess it's difficult as well because, it's not like we can monitor their behaviour, so it's all in the fossils. Elizabeth Lambert would like to know, do we know why T-Rex had such small arms? And she says, I know it was said that they might have been feathered arms. Is that the case?
Yeah, so there could have been feathers on T-Rex. I don't think we've picked up on that at all in the fossil record, like we don't have any direct evidence of that. But they're part of a group of animals that we know did have feathers, so they could have. I think in terms of the arms, one thing to say is that there's many different groups of dinosaurs that all evolve small arms.
Wow.
So the abilosaurids, like Carnotaurus, have even smaller arms than T-Rex.
Wow. And so these were independently...
Yeah, they independently evolved that same trait.
Wow.
They're all big dinosaurs that evolved this trait. They've all got really large skulls. So we know that they don't really need those arms. They're feeding using a pullback feeding motion. So yeah, the arms just kind of got in the way. Yeah, we know that not only did they they evolved small arms, and they evolved it independently many times. So we can suggest not just that the arms weren't used, so they're not just vestigial, but they've evolved them to be small on purpose. And so it seems like having big arms for those animals was like a maladaptive trait.
Yeah, so it's good to have teeny tiny arms sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mick on Instagram, what have been the more recent extinction events for megafauna species?
Yeah, so I guess megafauna is like a size class of animals. It's also like a word we use to describe animals from a particular point in time in Australia's history. But I guess a lot of big animals went extinct around 40,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, here on the Australian continent, it seems like, yeah, there's a kind of wave of recent extinction events around that time.
Yeah, because 40,000 years in the big scheme of things isn't actually that long ago. So.
Yeah, these are extremely recent fossils.
Wow, amazing. And what sort of things are we seeing from those fossils? Is that kind of like New Zealand's moa birds and now...
Yeah, I guess moas went extinct a little bit more recently than that, but I guess most of the animals here in Australia, things like diprotodon and thylacines, yeah, they're all kind of big mammals, yeah, that lived around that time.
Amazing. And Maximus Barton would like to know, why did Australian megafauna die out but African megafauna survive? So I guess that's talking in the kind of weight class, as you were saying, rather than extinct.
Yeah, I guess there's a few things there as well. So in Africa, I think there were some extinction events. It's just some of the species have like maintained. So there's lots of like large species that are still found in Africa today. I think we still don't really know the cause of the megafauna extinction. So there's people that debate maybe it's climate change or maybe human hunting. And there's a few reasons why animals could still exist in Africa. It could be that they just haven't had the same hunting pressures.
Yep.
Or it could be that the climate just hasn't been as devastatingly changed or as quickly changed as it has been on other continents.
Yeah,
So,
interesting. And have any megafauna endemic to far north Queensland been discovered? I bet this question is from someone from far north Queensland.
Yeah, so there are fossil sites in northern Australia. So sites like Riversley preserve a really wide range of different megafauna species. And yeah, there's a lot of species that are unique just to those fossil sites.
Amazing. And we're on to our final question already. And I think this is a really good one to finish off on. Are there any places locally that an ordinary person with limited mobility can go to fossick fossils? And if they find any and want to bring them to the attention of the scientific community, how would they go about that? So I guess just how can everyday people get involved with this?
Yeah, so I guess it can be difficult because a lot of fossil sites are remote, they're hard to get to. For people that are maybe have trouble with mobility, there's a few options. So some of the council quarries in central Queensland are sites where we find fossils, and you can take a car down into the quarry. It's kind of makes it easier to get to. There's a couple of local museums out there that run paid excavations, and so they can help you with things like safety and things like that. So I'd recommend people reach out to places like the Age of Dinosaurs Museum or Kronosaurus Corner if they wanted to access some fossil sites, I guess, more easily. The other part of that question was where should people go with information about fossils that they find? So I think the best place is to contact your local museum. So there's normally an expert at every state museum, and yeah, they can help you identify the fossils, and they also take donations if they're very scientifically important.
Amazing, that's so exciting. So
Yeah.
we can all kind of be a paleontologist then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So that is all of our questions. Thank you so much for joining us, Matthew. It has been absolutely fantastic chatting. So if you can't get enough Australian Geographic, because we're about to head off, be sure to grab our current issue, which is out now. There's also an incredible feature from our staff writer Esme, and that is all about searching for Aussie dinosaurs. She went out in the field and she made some pretty cool discoveries. So until next time, head to the Australian Museum if you want to see some fossils, and we will see you in the next episode.